This is the Washington Times front page for Thursday, September 29th, 2022. Thanks for joining us. I'm George Gerbo. European leaders say deliberate acts of sabotage were responsible for the damage done to two major Russian underwater natural gas pipelines. Ben Wolfgang reports basic questions remain unanswered more than 3 days after seismic events were detected near the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines. Although the pipelines are not operational, stored fuel leaked into international waters near the Danish and Swedish economic zones. European leaders were already bracing for a long winter and were urging member nations to scale back fuel use after cuts in Russian gas deliveries before the damage. Some in Europe suggested that Russia was behind the incident, while the Kremlin pointed the finger at the United States and accused America of perpetrating an attack. Investigators offered no clues publicly on who carried out the attack, how it was conducted, or what the motive was. It'll be tough to top the Supreme Court's last term for sheer impact, but a lineup of religious liberty and affirmative action cases is ready for their new term beginning next week. The first high-profile case will come before the justices on Tuesday from Alabama, legal affairs reporter Alex Swoyer reports. The state's new map of congressional districts is criticized by civil rights groups who say it disenfranchises black voters out of political power. On October 31st, the court is scheduled to take up two affirmative action cases challenging admissions policies at Harvard and the University of North Carolina. And a major test of President Biden's immigration policy looms in December with a case involving the Department of Homeland Security's attempt to limit arrests and deportations. After 2.5 years under pandemic restrictions, during which time the court heard arguments by phone and then in person without the public present, Chief Justice John Roberts has signaled a return to some sort of normalcy. Law enforcement officials are sounding the alarm over a spike in jugging thefts. Sean Salai reports the trend is one in which thieves patiently follow victims from banks or stores to their homes or other locations before committing robberies. Police report that bank customers in affluent urban areas of Texas, California, and Florida have been victims of the crime. Authorities say the best way for people to prevent jugging is to avoid waving money and purchases in their hands as they walk out of banks or stores, and to pay attention to who might be watching. You can read all of these stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page. You can also find the entire lineup of news, sports, and commentary podcasts at WashingtonTimes.com/podcasts. Colorado Democratic Governor Jared Polis has tried to backtrack on a year-old law downgrading penalties for vehicular theft. Valerie Richardson reports a sweeping sentencing overhaul in Colorado included a provision last year making it a misdemeanor to steal a car valued at less than $2,000. Faced with the nation's highest rate of stolen cars, Polis has asked the Colorado Commission on Criminal and Juvenile Justice to provide recommendations on enhanced penalties associated with auto theft and the classification system for sentencing. A top Taiwanese official on relations with mainland China is warning that Chinese President Xi Jinping is embracing an extreme form of closed-door nationalism that threatens the future of world democracies. National Security Team leader Guy Taylor reports Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council deputy member Cui Cheng-chu gave the warning weeks ahead of an anticipated move by Xi to consolidate power. U.S.-Chinese tensions have increased over the status of Taiwan, and Xi's vowed to someday reclaim control of the island democracy. And finally, Stephen Dinan looks at a Department of Defense study on who benefits from research done by the Pentagon. The Pentagon's review is not public, but has been publicized by Iowa Republican Senator Joni Ernst. She says the study says that China finds companies that are receiving federal research funding and recruits those firms to work for institutions associated with its military operations. Find all of today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or on the Washington Times app, and find us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Washington Times in your favorite podcast app. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Wash Times for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.